They never fight. They may squabble a little bit for a few minutes back and forth, and then it's over. And there's no grudges held, and there's no problems that last more than a day. And honestly, I don't know how they do it. It seems really boring to me, but maybe that's because I'm broken. Sometimes when I wake up, my knee hurts, my back hurts, my shoulder hurts, but basically everything hurts. And then I realize, like, oh, this is 36 and this is what the rest of my life is. And I think, oh, if only I could go back and be a teenager again and feel young and, full of life. And then I watch a movie like this week's movie and I say to myself, you know what? I'll take all the knee pain in the world over all of that flood of endorphins and emotion. I want no part of that again. This week we're going to be talking about Chemical Hearts on the Everyman Movie Review. Hey everybody, and thank you for joining me for yet another episode of the Everyman Movie Review. I am super excited that we have a couple of new movies to talk about over the next few episodes, which has been a bit of a rare occurrence. I've had to go back through the catalog, I've gone through the Quibi shows, I've gone through the Apple TV shows, but now we have some new movies to discuss, and I'm stoked for it. So back to the usual format, and that means I'm going to tell you a little bit about the movie itself, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the people in the movie, and I'll give you my review at the end and let you know whether or not it's worth your time and maybe your money to see this movie. So Chemical Hearts is a Amazon original. It's available on Amazon streaming, so that's where you're going to find it. Yes, I still cannot get out to a theater to see a movie, unfortunately, but I'm excited that there's new things to watch, even if it's on streaming. I'm also not usually a huge rom-com guy, but again, if it's a new movie and it can keep everybody in my household happy, that's a movie I'm willing to sit down and see. I also have a soft spot for Lili Reinhart, so, I'm down to see it either way. But I wanted to start off this episode by reading you the description from IMDb, and I'm going to actually read it so I don't misquote it. A high school transfer student finds a new passion when she begins to work on the school's newspaper. That is the worst description of this movie I could possibly envision, and I'm going to tell you why. But before we get too deep into it, let's get through the pleasantry, shall we? Chemical Hearts was directed by Richard Tan. It was also written by Richard Tan, although it was based on the book Our Chemical Hearts by Crystal Sutherland. It is starring the aforementioned Lili Reinhart, who I love in Riverdale and basically everything I see her in. I am so excited that she's a young actress and we're going to have a lot of time with her in the future. Austin Abrams as Henry, and I know I've seen Austin in something before and I can't really place it, but I'm also excited about this guy. He is what I wanted my teenage years to be like and look like, so I know that we have a lot of really fantastic movies coming from him. Sarah Jones as Sadie Page, Bruce Altman as Toby Page, Meg Gibson as Gloria Page, Adir Kalyan as Kem Sharma, Terry Young as Lola Haynes, CJ Hoff as Mark Patterson, Robert Clohessy as Martin Sawyer, Catherine Curtin as Sarah Sawyer, and John Lemon as Dominic Sawyer. So you'll notice a lot of those actors and actresses, when I mentioned the parts that they were playing, have the same last name. Yes, there are a lot of kind of close-knit groups here. Two families, really, the Page family and the Sawyer family. Lili Reinhart is playing Grace Town, and she is kind of with the Sawyer family. And Henry Abrams is playing one of the members of the Page family. And we have these two young people who are thrown together in such a rom-com-y way. Henry has been waiting 4 years to become the editor of the school newspaper. He's studied and he's worked hard, and this is all he wants for his life, and he gets it. He's gonna be the editor, but there's one caveat. Grace has transferred into the school from the preparatory school nearby, and she has a whirlwind history with the newspaper there and is very well known by their newspaper teacher, so they're going to share duties of being editor. And they learn this on the first day of school when they meet each other in the office hallway, I guess. I can't really tell if it's the principal's office. It seems like it's the newspaper office. I'm not really sure. But nonetheless, we have a little bit of a meet cute that isn't supposed to be a meet cute, but then we find out later is a meet cute. And now they have to be forced to work together, even though clearly they're oil and water and will never get along. And all it takes is Henry missing the bus and needing a ride and going with Grace to her house to get the car, to get a ride, and we are on our way down a story of love and heartbreak and teen romance. So that doesn't really say why it's called Chemical Hearts, and it sounds like from my early description, like maybe IMDb is not so far off. Except for nothing about this is really about the newspaper. That's how they meet. It's the motivator to get them together. And there is a little tie-in as we move along because they get 4 issues of the newspaper. It comes out 4 times a year. The 4th one is like their statement about the year. They have to do 3 standard episodes, and then they get to like do whatever they want with the 4th episode. And so they are working together, and that is causing friction. Obviously, I don't think it's a spoiler to say, if you've seen any of the marketing materials where they're, kissing, that a romance develops between Grace and Henry, and that kind of interferes with the business relationship of them being editors and her kind of weirdness and his weirdness. But the story is not really about the newspaper. It's about that relationship, and not really just that relationship, because we also see some relationships evolving around them. We learn about Grace's parents and the terrible relationship they had, and the relationship she has with the people that she lives with. And we see Henry's parents' relationship. High school sweethearts that have been together in a perfect marriage for 30 years, which is essentially the relationship my parents have, at least on the surface. I mean, I think if I wrote a movie about my life where I was a teenager, I would have them having this perfect life where they're always happy, even though that's not always the case. And, even as a kid, that. When mom and dad fight, even if they don't do it in front of you. So this is like a fictionalized version of that, where they actually are as happy. They're basically like a friend of the show, Corey, my buddy who I do the Oh the Anthem podcast with. Every Tuesday, brand new episode, ohtheanthem.com and Oh the Anthem on our social networks. I do a podcast with him, and he and his girlfriend are essentially the perfect couple. They never fight. They may squabble a little bit for a few minutes back and forth, and then it's over. And there's no grudges held, and there's no problems that last more than a day. And honestly, I don't know how they do it. It seems really boring to me, but maybe that's because I'm broken. But that's Henry's parents. And then we also see the other teenagers around them being involved in love and, the wanting and the desire, and then the getting, and is it as good as we thought it would be? And all of it just reminds me that I do not want to be 17 again. I do not want to have to go through that. Honestly, I have said before, maybe not here, maybe in something else that I've done. I do a lot of videos on my channel here. But maybe in something I said before, I would love to go back and be 14 again. I would love to take all of my knowledge now and just go back into that 14-year-old's body and take it over, because I would change the path of everything for my life. So much of the things that you think are life ending at 14 and 15 and 16 and 17 really don't mean anything. And that guy who is so mean to you and he's the coolest guy in school and you really want to be him, well, you can remember that he's going to be living at home with his parents at 36. And you'll be living in LA in the sunshine where it's warm and breezy. And maybe you get over the teasing. Who cares, really? Also, I would tell younger me, like, bro, just put down the Twinkies and hit the gym just a little bit. Like, you are gonna want those knees when you're my age, so go use them while you got them now. But that's personal, that's off topic. So the title Chemical Hearts comes from the fact that it's all about all of these things, the endorphins, everything swirling around in the heads and the bodies of these teenagers, and how it can make everything, like I just said, seem so extreme when it's not really. And we have these young people on the precipice of adulthood, and by that I mean legally. Like, they're about to be 18, they're making decisions that are going to impact the rest of their lives, but they're also going through this transition into adulthood physically, and not prepared for that kind of change. Just a huge advancement from childhood to adulthood in just a couple of years, and while they're doing that, they're going through the very most important changes of their lives, the decisions that will point them in a direction forever. It's just kind of a statement about how it's a little messed up that we do that to kids, that while they're in the least capable position of handling it, we are putting them in the most important decision-making time of their lives. And I don't think I've mentioned it thus far, and maybe, is that a good thing? bad thing? I don't know. But Lili Reinhart's character, Grace, is walking with a limp. She has a cane, and she tells the story kind of early on about being in a car accident, and, you know, she can't do the things she used to do. That's why she's not at prep anymore. She didn't want to see the things and be reminded of life before the accident. Kind of movie watch. And when Henry does a little internet sleuthing, he sees this vivacious girl who is just out there and the most popular girl in school, and it's hard to rectify that with what he sees now, which is this inward-turning, socially distant kid that doesn't really want to have anything to do with anyone. And I'll say, because it's important, Henry has an interesting hobby, and Henry's one of those like old soul people. He has a hobby of buying pottery and breaking pottery and then fixing it with gold, like seams and lines of gold, which is a Japanese art form, and the name I kind of know, but I'm going to butcher, so I'm not even going to try it. But it's like something that old people do at the twilight of their lives, and he's a kid who does it, and that kind of gives you the tone that he's this old soul trapped in a young man's body, but he's also just a horny teenager. And I think that Chemical Hearts did such a great job of saying, like, listen, we can make these guys, these teenage boys, old souls, and they can be more mature and more advanced, but they're also just horny teenagers. And that's okay. That it's okay that they are being at war inside their own bodies with how to feel and how to think, because that's what real life is like. I was a nerdy kid who did drama and not sports and read a lot and loved politics. I mean, a ladies' man, clearly, if you couldn't tell by that description. So, I mean, I would have been told I was an old soul, and I was always told that it was easier for me to talk to adults than it was to talk to people my own age. And in fact, all through high school, my friends were always older, which was great until senior year when I didn't have any friends. But again, not about me. I'm getting really distracted in this episode. Old souls. But yeah, so I was still a horny teenager. I mean, not going to be a spoiler for anybody, but that's how everybody is. Boys, girls, all the genders in between, however you identify, you're being flooded with just every kind of hormone you can imagine, and it's very confusing time. But I think that's about as far as I can go without giving away anything, and I'm trying really hard because this is such a fresh movie. I don't want to spoil anything at all. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's cut right here. We'll go to a spoiler section. So if you don't want to hear those, check out the time below and just jump to the end of the episode. My review will be on that side of it. I'll give you my final analysis. But go now, because the spoilers are about to start. Right here. Okay, so I said a few episodes ago about some movie. I am doing way too many of these and watching way too many movies. That's just a fact. That I enjoyed a movie even though I kind of figured out what the spoiler was. But I guess I say that to say that this one caught me by surprise. I didn't see kind of the twist coming, and there were a couple of them. So I didn't see coming that she was still living with the guy's parents. I didn't see coming that she was wearing his clothes, that she was still wrapped up in, I mean, I guess I didn't understand that she was still kind of wrapped up in him, and that was her emotion. The accident was her fault. She's still living with his parents. She's still living with all of that guilt and everything that was going on. I missed all of that. And I say I missed it, but I don't think I missed it. I think it was just a really well done movie. And maybe it's because I'm not used to watching rom-coms that often. And I guess Palm Springs was a rom-com as well. And I just didn't see it that way because of the science fiction stuff and the science. Excellent job, guys. But this was clearly a rom-com, and I still enjoyed every bit of it. And just I'll say the one thing I did pick up, once I saw Henry doing the Japanese art, I was like, all right, so that's going to come back and it's going to haunt him. There's going to be some kind of thing about like, I'm broken and you like broken things and putting them back together and you can't put me back together. And I think she said something like exactly like that. But then there was like the really cute thing about going to the little koi fish pond and like that was her spot, and then she brought him along, and just being a teenager is so much. And I think after that, like, just the development of this relationship, and, well, skip to the end. Like, he finds out she's living with the dead boyfriend's parents. She's wearing his clothes. She's living in his room. And how would you deal with that? I mean, now I think I would be more cool about that than I definitely would have been at 17. At 17, I probably would have been a dick about it, just like he was. And what can you do? I mean, you make bad decisions and you say things you regret when you're 17. And this is a weird rom-com because it doesn't end with the two of them getting together. Instead, they learn to get along without each other, and they realize that they were there for each other when they needed something, and now they can go be apart. And they're both going to go do the thing that they need to do to be better people and to be functioning adults. And he's going to go to a writing program, and she's going to do physical therapy, and there's no promises made about waiting. There's no promises made about next year. It's just they're comfortable again. It's like, I miss you, but this is how it is. And I think that's the thing I like about it. I hate rom-coms where it's like, it always has to end happy. Man, life doesn't end happy. It almost never ends that way. It always ends with heartbreak always ends with heartbreak. That's my experience thus far. I've never been married. So in the end, it's always going to end in a heartbreak of one variety or another. But that walking away and being like, oh, we were in this crazy hormonal time and life was crazy, but we got each other through it, and thank you, and oh, thank you too, and like being there, but now we're gonna go separate ways. Like I love that. I love that ending, and it got me. It got me. I actually went back and watched the end a second time just because I was like, you know what? I can't sit and watch the whole movie, but I want to watch like the last 15 minutes again and just watch them make this like mature decision. So I did, and it was good. But I mean, I guess that's it for the spoilers, right? Like, that's the whole movie. So let's bring everybody back in, and we'll wrap up this review right now. So I mentioned at the end of the spoiler section there that I actually went back and watched the end of this movie again, like the last 15 minutes. And, time is precious. It's precious for you. It's precious for me. I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm running for president, if you haven't heard about that. So I got to keep up with the social media for that. I got to keep up with the website. I'm running my own social media at Robert N. Cheek on all your social networks. And, of course, I'm trying to build out my website, robertncheek.com, where you can find links to all the stuff that I'm doing. These YouTube videos, the channel, and the books are available on Amazon. So taking some extra time to go back and watch something again isn't something I want to do, but if something hits me that hard, I feel like I have to. And unlike Palm Springs, this wasn't a rewatching out of confusion. It was a rewatching out of satisfaction. And being able to go back and just say, let me see how that wrapped up again. They did it so well. And I mean, Lili Reinhart looks amazing in the last little bit of that movie. So I just want to see her again too, I guess. But of course, what you're waiting for is, Rob, should we watch it? Listen, I've been just glowingly describing it all the way through. What do you think? Okay, so there are some triggers here for people. Obviously, car accidents, physical injuries, the death of a loved one, being in a kind of a messed up living situation, having weird family dynamics, bad family dynamics. Obviously, that can be a trigger for some people. But, I mean, it's no worse than any other rom-com that I have ever seen. I talked about it a little bit about the accident. We don't see the accident. We don't see anything like flashbacks to the accident. We're just living with them in the present. And so you don't have to worry about any of that. Just, I know some people some people don't have parents who've been together for 30 years. And I can't even imagine what that's like. Just like you probably can't imagine what it's like to go see your parents and for them to be like lovey-dovey after 38 years of marriage. I can't even imagine what that would be like. But I say all of that to say that even though I'm not a huge fan of rom-coms, and even though I don't think this is a traditional rom-com, and even though I especially don't like teenage rom-coms because I think they're so fake and it doesn't really tell the story of what it's like to be a teenager in love, I think this does a great job of telling the story of teenagers in love. And because of that, maybe not just because of that, but because of that and the fact that it was such an excellently done movie, and it kept me guessing all the way through, or it kept surprising me at least all the way through. And it's yet another movie that can satisfy everyone in the household. And those, as much as I seem to talk about them, are rare. It's a lot of compromising and being like, I don't really want to see this, but you do, so let's watch it. And the next time we're going to watch the thing that I want to watch. I'm about to watch Guns Akimbo, which is a Daniel Radcliffe movie. And trust me, I want to see that, and nobody else in the world probably wants to see that, but I'm going to let you know whether you should see it in just a few weeks. It was rare, and I'm glad that we got to enjoy it together. So unless one of those trigger warnings applies to you, or unless you're just like, no rom-coms, never ever, I think this movie is for everybody. And again, like the title, Chemical Hearts, the whole thing being about the messed up emotions and hormones and life all just throwing together a soup. There's just something about that I think it goes to something raw in all of us. We have all been teenagers before. We've all known those emotions. And it really transported me right back there. And I think it'll transport you back as well. And if for that reason, I do highly recommend it. So thank you for hanging out for yet another episode. I hope that you're taking some advice from some of these things and checking out some movies. I don't know about you, but I am still social distancing. I'm still staying home. So I'm always looking for new things. If you have a movie you think I should see, please hit me up. A friend of the show, Kiefer, actually was like, hey, I wanted to say about your reviews, have you checked out that new movie, Vivarium? The one where they're stuck in the... Yes, I did. It's coming up next. So make sure you check out the new episodes. We're keeping up our pace of 2 a week. That means every Thursday and one day in between. So make sure you check out the next episode for Vivarium. And over the next few weeks, we have a lot of exciting movies coming. So make sure you check those out. But until then, please take care of yourselves and each other in these trying times. Have a great week, everybody.